Well, thank you for breaking me out of that daydream. Dr. Namuo, who is at Cochise College with the technology department, just recently completed his PhD with U of A, and I thought that his doctoral thesis was very fascinated about embedded community colleges and how budget restraints are affecting and how many different stakeholders can affect those. And so I thought it would be appropriate for him to come and speak with us about that today. So thank you, Dr. Namuo, for that.
All right, well, thank you for that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for having me here today. Hopefully what I provide is of some value to the council. Like Councilmember Gray said, I recently completed my PhD through the Center for the Study of Higher Education at the U of A, and basically spent all of last year traveling to different community colleges, and really the main question driving my research agenda has to do with how do community college leaders manage the stresses associated with reduced financial resources. How do they remain strategic? How do they remain innovative despite those constraints? So I've had the opportunity to travel to different states, had the opportunity to speak to different organizations and different community colleges, and will continue to do so throughout this year as my dissertation has sort of evolved into a book that will be published by Norlights Press, and the book is really on community college strategy. It's called Community College Strategy, the Innovative Leader's Handbook. But really the focus of my research, as Councilmember Gray stated, is really the divestment of state government in higher education, and specifically how community colleges have been managing that divestment. And I'll start with this because I've traveled to different community colleges and have had the opportunity to speak to different community college leaders throughout the state. And I'll throw some numbers at you, and they relate specifically to the recession. So according to research, for every 1% increase in unemployment, community college enrollment can be expected to increase by 4%. Right? As workers are retrained, they go back to community colleges, they go back to higher education. And what we found, because now, recovering from the recession, we're able to look at those numbers. And those numbers held up. In 2007, the nation's unemployment rate was right at 4.5%. Well, at the height of the recession, it was close to 10%. So, from 2007 to 2011, community colleges saw an increased enrollment, according to the American Association of Community Colleges, of 21.8%. One of the very few industries that were booming during the recession. Now, the tragic thing about that was at a time when community colleges should have been receiving more resources, they received less resources. So Chapter 3 of my book is about the divestment of state government in higher education, and it's really unfortunate and counterintuitive in many ways. But what I found is that community colleges are resilient. Chapter 1 of my book, I have that exact line. This book is maybe not so much about community college strategy as it is about community college resilience. Right? Record enrollments, despite reduced financial resources, specifically reduced state allocations. In fact, from 1980 to 2011, there have been only 2 states that have either maintained or increased their financial commitment to higher education. Only Wyoming and only North Dakota have been able to maintain their appropriations to community colleges. In fact, our state of Arizona reduced their allocations to community colleges by 61.9% between 1980 and 2011. What I write about is, in part, comparing and contrasting the difference between how universities have responded to this divestment and how community colleges have responded to this divestment. An undergraduate taking one unit at the University of Arizona, my alma mater, go Wildcats, pays $764 for one unit of undergraduate in-state tuition. At Cochise College, they pay $73 for one unit. From 2007 to 2011, according to the American Council on Education, examining and kind of researching how universities were impacted or responded to this divestment, the state of Arizona's tuition went up 70%. Right, from 2007 to 2011, 70%. So we're seeing university students bearing a lot more of the financial burden. Now, community colleges are very different. Community colleges took a very different approach, as evidenced by the tuition comparison between the U of A and Cochise College. And that's due in large part to the deeply held identity of community colleges. We identify with disadvantaged populations. We identify with traditionally disadvantaged populations, and we are unwilling to transfer that burden to our students, to our community college students. So you'll see that in my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions following my presentation, and of course make myself available as a resource to the council as well. Okay. Now, one of the things I tried to do is take a look at the city's strategic plan, strategic leadership plan, in addition to the plan for prosperity document, and maybe try to bring some of that into this presentation as well. And hopefully, it's of some value, and it may be really of some value because I'm writing chapter 3 in my book, which is really about economic development, the state divestment in higher education, and so I'm dealing with a lot of numbers. So hopefully I'm able to connect some of my research to what the city has already come up with. Now specifically chapter 4 is what I thought I'd focus on today, and it really has to deal with the community college ecosystem. And what I mean by that is community colleges really, if you look at community college and strategic behavior, community colleges have no business behaving strategically. They are influenced by a wide variety of stakeholders. They're influenced by legislatures. They're influenced by local government. They're influenced, of course, by their students, by the federal government, and some of the financial aid regulations associated with the federal government. So the ecosystem itself is important to understand and realize when you're looking at community colleges, because really they have very little they have very little business behaving strategically at all, yet they do. So what one of my main findings in my research is that community colleges have a new strategic orientation. They are starting to pivot away from a reliance on those state allocations. So one of the presidents I spoke to said, at what point do I stop answering the phone, right, from the legislature or from the governor's office? And at that time, his community college district was receiving 3 to 5% of its overall budget from the state. So they're kind of moving, they're assuming that in a few years that number will be 0, and they'll have to rely on other sources. So that's what I'm seeing. Now, what happens to that large chunk when it disappears? Alternative revenue streams, such as donors. Do we put more of the financial burden on our students? Do we rely on reserve accounts that in some cases community colleges have stashed money away in excess of 2.5 years worth of their annual budget, simply because they're afraid that state government will abandon them completely? Yet today we still see approximately 30% of community college budgets coming from the state. And I'll jump ahead to this next slide. One of the phenomenon that I label in my research really has to do with the breadth of external pressures that these community colleges face. And it may seem a bit cruel, but I compare this to medieval torture. And managing all of those pressures from all of those different stakeholders has certainly been a challenge for many community college leaders. Do they partner with those external pressures? Are they forced to simply comply? Or do they employ other strategies? So what you'll see on the screen in front of you is a diagram that has the community college at the center and 4 separate quartering entities. The community, in terms of industry groups and advisory boards, military partners, exert significant influence on Cochise College specifically. State government, legislators, political groups, governors, and other sister schools, other community colleges, and nationwide trends such as the emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and math influence our curriculum greatly. And of course regulators, and I put universities in that category because if CIS 120 does not transfer to the University of Arizona, the vast majority of CIS majors at Cochise College are at a significant disadvantage. Now, in some cases, we are forced to not only comply, but statutorily, we're not able to implement certain solutions. For example, the example I gave earlier in regards to reserve accounts, community colleges are able to have significant and sizable financial reserves. They're not able to spend them beyond their allotted budget unless they go to the public and specifically via a ballot measure ask if they can spend beyond their allocated budget. So they can have $100 million in the bank. They just have to ask the public to spend that money. So there are different types of pressures, a wide variety of pressures that exert influence on community colleges. So that begs the question, what makes a community college strategically successful? Because if all of these pressures are exerting themselves on community colleges, what then do community colleges do? How do they innovate? How do they become strategically successful? And so what I've been doing this year and will continue doing throughout this year is talking to different organizations about the concept of embedded community colleges. And the concept is very simple. Strategically successful community colleges embed themselves in their communities. They form partnerships. They create and maintain symbiotic relationships with their community stakeholders. Local private industry through private industry councils or chambers of commerce. Local hospitals through nursing clinicals throughout the county. Local government, their own governing board in addition to city government. Law enforcement through relationships with police academies, and I know Cochise College has a strong relationship through their fire science technology program with Chief Redmond and the fire department here at the city as well. Military installations exert great influence on us. Small business development centers, specifically as that relates to economic development. Outreach centers and investing in centers that may be out in the far reaches of the county. And partnerships with K through 12 school districts. This is what a strategically successful community college looks like. Fostering and maintaining relationships with the entities in their communities.
Doctor, let me just take
Sure,
this
Mr.
moment.
Crosby.
I'm going to have to go on to another meeting, but I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to apologize for leaving before you're done, and I want to congratulate you on getting your PhD and all the work you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions, discussion.
Anybody?
Dr. Namuo, I have a couple of questions for you, actually. So what do you feel are the most successful strategies in terms of managing reductions at community colleges?
Bake sales. I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, members of council, not bake sales, not car washes. It's community college leaders who understand the bigger picture, who understand the community college ecosystem and are actively engaged in that ecosystem. As you climb the administration at a community college, you are further and further away from the core mission of the institution. However, your decisions affect the entire community college. But you can spend your energy elsewhere and be just as influential and affect those students. So I would say the first thing is to be aware of the community college ecosystem, be actively engaged with the environment, and actively neutralize the pressures, right? Or partner with those different organizations.
Thank you. And the follow-up to that question is, what, in your opinion, would be a good step for our local government to begin to make sure that we're in lockstep with the community colleges in our town, and making sure that we're supporting, and as it relates to economic development, having a strong education system,
right,
along with healthcare, quality of life, those things. So what do you feel is a good first step for the city to take in that, as a council, in relation to our strategic plan?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Gray, forge those partnerships would be my primary recommendation. It's difficult because the community college has their own governance, their own governing structure, yet the city maintains IGAs with the county, with the college. So, governance is one thing, but relationship building is another. So if I were to make one recommendation, it would be to invest in those relationships.
Thank you.
When was next thing? Then we'll do you next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Namuo. Thank you, sir. It would appear to me from your presentation and from the information you gave us that Cochise College is well on its way to be a strategically, successfully embedded entity in our community. There's countless areas that, in events that I attend, where Cochise College is an important part of that event, either through the relationships you talk about or even the use of the facilities, but deeper than that, in the way that the people who work at Cochise College feel about the community and use the community. And I can't help but think about the fire department's relationship and other things. I was met with some people from Horizon Health and how much they're a part of what goes on, and I know with the hospital too. So I would think we need to continue what we're doing and do more of it. And especially you mentioned relationship building, and that's so important in how communities work together. I did want to ask you too, though. Well, I had a couple of questions, but because of the time, I'll just ask this one. What, to your knowledge, was the reason that community colleges were established, and do we still believe in those reasons?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Calhoun, we absolutely do, and actually, I hate to keep plugging my book here, but I will. But Chapter 2 of my book talks about the identity, this deeply held identity of community colleges. And truthfully, the identity of community colleges has actually changed over the years. Initially, it was designed as mainly a transfer institution, mainly just sending students to the university, sort of subordinated to the role of universities. That role has changed. That role has changed for a number of different reasons, the GI Bill being one of them. But we see the vocationalization of community colleges and that evolving identity, and we've sort of settled into this comprehensive mission where community colleges now do everything. Right? 25% of the students at Cochise College transfer to a university. That means 75% of them are there for job training. So, the initial identity is very different from what the identity is today. And that sort of leads into another issue of, in terms of potential partnerships, community colleges, actually specifically Cochise College, represents every industry. So there are numerous opportunities to partner beyond the fire department, beyond nursing clinicals, beyond the CIS department in terms of working with defense contractors on post. Did that answer your question?
It did, and it also cost a lot more, and also opened the door that more discussions, especially related to the economic development of our community, our strategic plan and all that. We may need you as a resource to further those conversations.
Be happy to be a resource.
Thank you.
Mrs. Husky.
Hi, I just want to thank Rachel for thinking of having you come here, because this really is interesting information, and I'm pleased to see something that's research that's really quite relevant to what we're trying to do as a city economically. I'm wondering that if you forge those relationships and you establish a need for the community, how fast can the community college respond?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Husking, the short answer, of course, it depends, but I would say that in general, community colleges are agile. They don't face as many regulatory issues as universities, so it would have to depend on the specific discipline. But I can speak specifically, as I'm the department chair for computer information systems, that if there's a project that's worth doing, we'll find the resources, we'll allocate the resources to get it done. And really there are countless examples of that happening here at Cochise College, from nursing to fire science, from internships, and the most recent one in CIS is we may be partnering with TASC to submit a proposal to DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the agency responsible for the Internet and GPS. We may be involved to create a cybersecurity robot. So we are very responsive. You'll find that community colleges in general are very responsive, and as they continue to pivot away from a reliance on state government and invest more resources to developing and maintaining relationships with their community stakeholders, city government specifically in this case, you'll find that more community colleges will be willing to invest their resources to maintain those relationships.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, with that, Doctor, I want to say thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. I assume this is your family sitting there?
Yes.
I'll tell you, some very well-behaved young men out there, so thanks for coming, guys. And we appreciate that, too. Seeing no other business before City Council, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.